All right, so yeah, tonight I was going to talk about Pipenv. So I guess first of all, before I even get started here, how many people use virtual environments with their Python? All right, I guess mostly everyone. We got a few people who don't. So let me go over, before I start my presentation, I guess let me go over what a virtual environment is first. So let me start up my environment here. Should have done this earlier, but that's all right. All right, so yeah, let's go over what a virtual environment is first before we get into Pipenv. So virtual environments, if you haven't used them, if you have multiple Python projects, they help you have different dependencies installed for different projects. So if you have a lot of projects, let's see, on my machine here, you can see these are all the different projects I'm working on, and each of them has different dependencies. So you don't want to install your packages on your computer. You want to keep them in a nice little container. Virtual environments with Python let us do that. And normally, you know, we use pip with Python. So if you haven't used pip, check that out. And we'll do something like this, right? And if I do that command, that's going to install Django to my system. But instead of installing Django to my system, I want to use a virtual environment. That way, I keep a nice container just for that project. All right, so let's go over some of my slides here. If you want these slides, you can go to the bit.ly address here and get them. So what's Pipenv? So it's a new way to do virtual environments. So if you've done virtual environments before in Python, you probably use VirtualEnv or VirtualEnv wrapper. So Pipenv is kind of the new way to do this, but also it's being officially recommended by the Python packaging authority now. So it's new, but it's also the official tool now. So you probably want to start using it. And here's the docs for Pipenv. And so yeah, it's got a lot of features, and we'll go over that, but it creates virtual environments for us. It keeps track of what packages and which dependencies. And yeah, and it also generates this pipfile.lock. We'll talk about that. And helps our builds become deterministic. So a lot of times with the old Python tools for virtual environments, you know, you would go install something on your machine, you go deploy it, and you know, like 7 days later, and it installs a different version of the package than you were expecting because a new version has come out, and then your build breaks. So with the pip file, or the pipfile.lock, it gets rid of that, hopefully for us. All right, so yeah, it's more like JavaScript. Yay. So I'm sure some of you love that and some of you hate that. But you know, when you're doing JavaScript, you'll usually have like a node modules directory when you install packages locally. So Pipenv works more like that. Also, when you do an npm install, let's do that real quick. I'll go into a temp directory. So, you know, usually when you do npm init, blah, 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 and then you do npm install, I don't know, what's a node package? Cheerio, I think. So when you do an npm install, right, it automatically not only installs the file, but it automatically tracks it for you and creates it and puts it into your package.json. So, you know, we got a nice node modules directory that has our packages. And we have a nice package.json that tracks what I just installed for us. So now we have the same stuff in Python with Pipenv. So here's, I guess, some of the usage. Let's try it out. I'm going to make a new project here. All right, so let's try this out. Pipenv install, and I'll do Django. So it's not only going to install the package for us, hopefully, if it goes here. Yeah, here it goes. But we'll also get a pip file out of it that will start tracking our dependencies for us. And, right, it's creating a virtual environment all in this one command. So normally with like VirtualEnv, you'd have to go create your virtual environment, add your requirements.txt, and then go install and make sure you keep your requirements.txt up to date. This is all done for you in one command now. So let's see, hopefully it finishes successfully. So you can see right here, this is the location of my virtual environment on this machine. Come on, you can do it. Yeah, that's made by me. Also, you get more colors with Pipenv. See all the nice colors? So, all right, let's talk about that other stuff while it's going on here. So it will be a little bit different than what you're used to if you're used to VirtualEnv wrapper. So let's try that out. So normally, I guess while that's waiting, with VirtualEnv wrapper, you would start your environment, you would say, you know, work on my test project. Something like that. And that would bring you into your virtual environment, and then you would start installing and working on your stuff. Pipenv is going to be a little bit different. All right, this is taking forever. There it goes. It's always slow when you do it in person, right? So, so with Pipenv, you have two options. You can just run stuff. So if I do a Pipenv run, it's going to run this command. It'll jump into my virtual environment, and then when I quit that command, it'll take me back out. So that's option number one. Option number two, you could do Pipenv shell, and that's kind of like the old work on command. So it would take you in. It's up to you to exit out of the virtual environment. So let's try those out. So I'll do the second one first, I guess, so I can start a project here. So if I do this command, this is going to take me into my virtual environment. Man, everything's slow tonight. All right, here we go. Why am I don't have a pip file. It should create did I do this correctly? All right, let's try this again. It should create a pip file for me when I install Django. No, it should put it there. Let's see if it works. I'll show you off another project I have here. So it's supposed to, whenever you do an install, If you don't have a pip file, it should go in and create one for you. So here's another project I have. Let's see if it did it right this time. No, it still didn't do it. All right, well, I'll go into an existing project I have. I don't know why that's not working. So let me go into an existing environment. Oh, I bet you that's what it's doing. Oh, it's probably because I have a pip file right here. So it goes and tries to find the pip file. I bet you that's what it's doing. So it probably found this one and started to use it. So let me get rid of that and we'll try this over again. Third time's a charm, right? All right, I don't have any pip files in here. All right, let's try this one more time. All right, so it should create a virtual environment for me and create a pip file for me. All right, well, while that's going, I'll go into my other environment just to kind of show you what it does when it's doing what I think it should do. So you get a pip file and you get a pip lock file, and we'll talk about that. So, you can go in to environment like this. That's one way to do it. And again, it's looking for that pip file. So when it finds it, that's the virtual environment it's going to load up. Man, it's slow. I bet you it's because I'm recording this. So now I'm in my virtual environment, right? And I could run my Django server like that if I did it correctly. No, I'm not getting this either. It didn't load up my, something is broke. Wow, tonight is a real failure because it's not bringing up my virtual environment. I was just working on this today. I was just working today. All right, let's try this out. Because usually I'm in tmux. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't think so, but all right, we're gonna do it today then. We'll just go on to another computer. How's that sound? Because obviously something broke with my computer. All right, so let's try this out. Make a test project. Pipenv install Django. All right, so yeah, it's creating my virtual environment. Okay, I think this one's is working. I got some nice colors. Yay, okay, that one worked. This is what's supposed to happen. So I get a pip file. Let's bring that up. So there's my pip file, and there's my lock file. And then I want to go into my virtual environment. I can go in this way. So let me start a project. Cool. And then you can see when you're in the virtual environment, you'll see this in front of your, prompt. So the other thing you can do is we can try the other way too. Pipenv run. And I'll go over the advantages of actually doing this. So you can also go into your virtual environment this way also. So that will take you into your virtual environment, run that command. Now when I quit, I'm out of my virtual environment. Yeah, well, when you do the pipenv install, it sets that up for you. And yeah, if you want to, all your virtual environments automatically go to that location. So you can see that's the virtual environment that it's set up for me. All right, so now that we actually got something to work here, let's go over the new shiny stuff. So the Pipfile. So this nice Pipfile that we got. So you can see, right, it automatically tracks when you install something. So let me install something else here. I'll install 2 web frameworks because I'm crazy tonight. So you can see my file got updated. I don't have to worry, with the old way with requirements.txt. I'd have to install it and then make sure I add it to my requirements.txt. Pipfile or pipenv will automatically update my pip file for me. So I don't have to worry about it. So that's kind of the first thing it does. And yeah, it usually looks like this. The other cool thing, again, more like JavaScript and other package managers, we can have our general dependencies, but we can also have developer dependencies too. So if we need stuff that's like just done for like testing purposes and not necessarily on a deploy, we could have developer dependencies also. And one of the other cool things too is you can pin the version of Python you want to use. So if your app only works like on Python 3, you could go in here and just put in Python 3 as a requirement. So that's the pip file. The pip lock. Now I put the robot guy here because the lock file is really for robots, not for us as humans. So, you don't have to edit this because, pipenv will add our requirements for us. And also, if I do, let's do an uninstall. So if I uninstall something, it'll also take it out for us. But, this file is very human readable. So if you want to go in and tweak things, it's pretty easy. The lock file really isn't. And this is what's used for the deterministic builds. So again, a lot of times with the old method, you would go install something and then you go deploy it a couple days later and a different version would get installed. So this will lock down all the versions of all the different packages that you're using. So you can see, right, I'm using version 2.02. And then the other thing is it comes with some security features. So it has hashes in here. So it'll also, when you download that package, take a hash of it. And so when you go to deploy, it's going to try to match that hash up. So you don't get some kind of man-in-the-middle attack when you go deploy those packages. And it's going to do that, right, for all the dependencies came along with that. So like I didn't install this, but that's a dependency of Django. So it's going to lock down that version for me. And then also just to secure. Could you get the door, Koja? Someone's at the door. So that's the lock file. Any questions on any of those two things? So yeah, again, if you're used to like the node manager, or NPM, I should say, you know, NPM has a package.json and then a lock file also. It's the same idea. All right, autoload.env. So a lot of times you'll have secrets like API keys and different things, right? And you probably don't want to commit those on your in your code, especially if you have like some open source code. So let me make a .env file. And I'll paste something. .envs look something like this. So these will be my secrets. So, you know, I got my secret key for Django and I got my Google API keys in there. So anytime I run something, what do you see up here? Loading.env variables. So automatically, if it finds a .env, it's going to load those up into your environment so that you have your secrets loaded. And so the cool thing is, right, is if I quit and I change one of these, I just run that command again and it loads them back up. You had a question? Yeah, so that's why this command is kind of nice, because you can just quit it and start it off again and it will reload your environment. Now, if I did pipenv shell, it's only going to load your environments once. So if I change my .env, I'd have to remember to exit and then come back in. Yeah, well, actually, so this .env is not technically a bash, but yeah, that would work actually. But if you do some of the escaping, it doesn't escape the same as bash. So you got to be careful. Yeah, so that's where I actually usually like to do this. And, you know, that's quite long though, right? You got to write pipenv run. So let's see if I did it on this machine. I actually made a shortcut for myself. So, you know, make up an alias. Okay, I didn't do it on this machine, but I did it on my other machine that doesn't want to work tonight. So I just usually type PR, and then that does the pipenv run for me. So yeah, you don't necessarily make up a little shortcut for yourself to do that. So that's the .env. Security checkup. So this is another pretty cool feature that pipenv does. So let's run this. So if you run pipenv check, it checks it against PEP 508. So let's look that up. So this has got a thing. I don't usually read these. But anyway, it's going to do a bunch of dependency checks and actually, or not dependency checks, security checks for you. And actually this has happened, I think in the last couple months or 6 months, where the Python Packaging Authority had packages that were malicious and they had to take them off. So this pipenv check will check for those packages and tell you if you have them or not. So people were putting in misspelled versions of popular packages, and then it had malware on it. So it's actually a cool thing. It is kind of annoying though too, because when you do a pipenv install, it will try to check to see if you misspelled something and suggest another package. And for me, it's actually only just giving me the wrong package. So that's kind of annoying. But I guess in the long run, if it helps some people out not to install malware, that's a good thing. But you can also run it manually. So that way, you can check, is there a bad version, or is there a security release of my package that I need to upgrade? So it will look at that, and if there's some kind of big security vulnerability that gets listed, it will tell you what it is and tell you the upgrade. Pretty cool. Yeah, so like I said, actually, whenever you install a new package, it will do a check for you for the thing you're installing. That command, though, is probably something you'd want to put into like your continuous integration so that you're testing for that. So yeah, you'd have to run that. But you know, it doesn't, and it's easy, so you could add it as a test really easily. All right, so that's security. There's actually a whole bunch of other stuff that it does that I kind of just threw all together on this last slide. So it'll also, if you have a requirement.txt, it will, I think we got another person at the door. If someone can check. It'll also, so if you have the old style of a requirements.txt, it'll actually take, if you do a pipenv install, let's do that if I can get to my tab here. So if you do this and you have a requirements.txt file there, it'll actually go ahead and convert it for you and make a pip file for you and then install everything. So it'll automatically convert from the old style to the new style. Now, it doesn't always work. So you can see, I'll show you off project here. Oh, it was right there. So this was a project where I went ahead and did a pipenv install. And you know, normally with this, I'm cool. Pip installs it just fine. And you can see if you go back in my project, I got rid of my pip file because it broke everything. So I ended up not using it because the dependency tree that it created like would just not work, and it would just, the project wouldn't start up. So I had to go back. So it doesn't always work because you know, it's going to try and get the latest version of everything and then match it together. And so yeah, I haven't taken the time to kind of go through and get all my stuff working on the newest versions of everything yet. So you got to be careful with it, but if you're lucky, you can just do pip install and it will, or pipenv install, and it will convert you to the new system of pip files. It wasn't that old actually, but there was like one dependency where it couldn't like resolve it correctly, and so it wouldn't install with pipenv. But if I do it with pip and requirements.txt, it's fine for some reason. So yeah, I tried for like an hour to get it to work, and then I was like, all right, I don't care that much. Well, so like certain, you know, because it makes this lock file, it's more strict about how things get installed because it tries to be deterministic. So like one of my packages depends on one version, and another one of my packages depends on that same package but at a different version. So pip doesn't care, and it just installs whatever the last thing it gets or the first thing that it gets. Or pipenv does, and it says, oh, I have 2 conflicting versions. I can't get this to work. So like pip doesn't check that. It just installs something. Yeah. 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 So, you know, and it actually works, but one of the dependencies for one of my packages is off. So until that person updates their dependencies, I'm kind of stuck with pipenv. So yeah, it doesn't, you know, it's not that advanced actually as JavaScript yet. So JavaScript will actually install different versions of different packages for you, which is crazy if you think about it. Yeah, so yeah, when you use NPM, if you have 2 different versions for 2 different things, it will actually install 2 different versions for you. So, where with Python right now, it's going to pick one, and if it can't pick it, then it fails. So, or at least with pipenv. Pip now just picks whatever the last thing it finds. So, and normally it works. Normally you don't care. So, all right. So what's some of the other tricks it does? Pipenv update. Let's try that one out. Now I guess it's not going to do anything here. When you run this, it will recommend kind of new dependencies for you. So, you know, if you're out of date with a certain dependency, it will go and update it for you to the latest version. Again, you know, that might or not break something for you though. So you got to be careful with that one. You can also, you know, if you don't want it to like automatically go update something, you could just say, hey, just tell me what's outdated. And of course, on this project, I don't have anything outdated. I'm trying to think if I have an old project laying around. But on another project, if you have something outdated, then it'll just tell you what's outdated. You could also go in and just name one package. So you could say, just go update this one package. So go update it to, you know, the latest version for that one package. But if you do this command, it's going to go update everything. So. All right, so let's see. I think that's all I had, but I also just wanted to show off the documentations because there's a lot more stuff in here. Just to kind of go over the command line. You know, so you have the check clean. Actually, I haven't used that one yet, so I don't know what that does. If you want to get like a graph of your dependencies, pipenv graph will produce that. I guess we could try that one out. This will be a simple graph since I only have one thing installed. So you can see, right, Django depends on pi, tz. So like for that situation where it didn't work out, right, I had 2 packages that depended on the same package but at different versions. Yes, so it's going to take the latest. You can tell it what to do. So you can see like in this pip file, I went ahead and told it like I wanted that version of Django. Now here's the funny thing though, is after I went to deploy it, it totally ignored that. So I think that's a bug in the project, but theoretically you can tell it to pin a version when you do the install also. You can if you want to, but you can also put it on the command line, which version you want. But like I said, it actually ignored it. So when I went to go deploy it, even though I had 11.8, it went and installed 2.0. I was like, what the heck? So I think that's a bug though in the project. So hopefully that doesn't go in the future. Happen in the future, I should say. Pip lock. So you can actually also run this without the lock file. So, you know, like in that situation where I had two packages depending on different versions of another package, I basically tried to run it without the lock file, and then you can go create that lock file later on if you want to. So you can use the pip file like a requirements.txt if you want to. And then you can generate the lock file separately if you wanted to. So that's an option too. And again, I actually did that, but then installed Django 2.0, and so then I was really mad. So I just got rid of it altogether. So there are still some bugs. The open command, I forget what that does, but I guess it just opens something for you. We did the run, the shell, the sync, so that basically syncs it up with whatever you have installed in your environment. So you could go in and kind of mess with packaging separately yourself and then just sync it up to what's your environment. And then the uninstall command, I showed that. But, you know, there's a lot of options here. So, you know, even if it doesn't necessarily work, you could try skipping the lock file and still hopefully be able to use this and different things like that if you're converting a project over. Any questions about anything? Yeah. So I think it's a -dev, but let me check. Yeah, so where's the, there it is, yep, -d or -dev. So let's try that out. Pipenv install, and I'll do PyTest, right? So I'll install that as a developer dependency. And then let me open that file up. So now you can see I have a dev package. So now let me go ahead and do this. I'm going to wipe that VirtualEnv out. Because why not? All right, so I just wiped out my VirtualEnv, right? So if I want to get it back, I can just do a pipenv install. It's going to install all my packages for me. And I think I need to do a -dev if I want the dev package installed for me also. Well, so it's all based on where that pip file is located. So I couldn't find the option because I don't like how it names things. I was hoping I could like change the name, and I haven't found it yet where I need to do that. But like test project blah blah blah, I wish it would, like, I could name it something instead. So yeah, but it all works on like the location where that pip file is. So I guess you could have different directories in your project with different pip files, but yeah, it's gonna normally just have one thing per directory. Yeah, that's what I was looking for before, and then I gave up on that one. Sure. bit.ly pipenv-slides. Right now, yeah, it's going to basically try to like create that lock file, and it's going to fail. So, you know, if you have, let's take this example. Yeah. So like take this, right? So I had Django, and Django depended on PyTZ. And so it pinned it at 2018, right? So if I had another library that depended on 28 or PyTZ, but at a different version, when it goes to create the lock file, it's going to fail. Now, like I said, you could still potentially use this. You know, it's not going to be as safe, but when you go install something, you know, if I go install Tornado, I can say skip the lock file. And then it won't try to resolve and create that deterministic lock file for me. So actually, I had done that on this project, and that's why I had this. I finally got everything working. And then when I went to deploy it, it installed totally different versions of everything anyway. So then I was like, screw this, I'm going back to requirements. So, but with that said, for like stuff that has simpler requirements or like a new project, it's been really easy and it gives you a lot of nice features. So I really like it a lot. And going forward, it's the official tool. So yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, for an older project, especially with a lot of dependencies, yeah, just try it out. You know, like I said, you can just run pipenv install, and it may or may not work, right? If it works, then you're cool. So, and you can move forward. Now, with that said, too, I guess another problem I ran into was, so that app I deployed on Heroku, and it was, so I was switching from requirements.txt to a pip file. I had to wipe the build clean or it wouldn't switch it correctly. So I had to like tell Heroku to like build from scratch. So just a little FYI, if you're using like an automated tool like that and you're switching. So any other questions on pipenv? All right, well, that's all I had. So like I said, we're actually recording this tonight, so I'll post it up on the web too. You can share with all your friends.